Hello, everyone. This is Dana Wilde, and welcome to this exclusive Train Your Brain You interview. Now, listen, I'm going to do a formal introduction here in 1 second, but before we do, since we've got a couple of minutes before we officially start, I just want to check in and see if I'm coming through in the Facebook group, okay? Because I want to make sure my technology's set up because we're in a group. So sit tight. Pete, just sit there and smile.
All right, easy enough.
That's right. Tough job, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me just double check and make sure we're all good since we've got a few minutes. Because I know people were excited. Yay! We're here. I see you out there. All right, fantastic. Good. Okay, now we'll pretend like I didn't do any of that, and we'll start all over again.
Sounds good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the interview. This is Dana Wilde, and this is an exclusive Train Your Brain You interview. I'm really excited to talk with you today because I met Pete Weintraub, who we're going to talk with today. He's from Weight Loss by Pete, and I met him through interviewing him on the Mind Aware show. And, you know, he's done something remarkable. He lost 100 pounds, but more importantly, he's kept it off. And the thing that really interested me was that he's had, in particular, one spot in particular where he hit a plateau. And we were talking about all the different ways that he's had to obviously use the obvious things like exercise and fitness, but also mindset to kind of break through these different levels and these different shifts, which is what many of us are doing with our businesses too, right? We hit plateaus, we need to break through. So they're so synonymous. So whether you want to lose weight or whether you want to go beyond in your business, this is the interview for you. So welcome, Pete. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Dana. Happy to be back.
Yeah, I'm glad to talk with you. You know, Pete, I think probably the best place to start to lay the groundwork is maybe tell everybody your story.
Sure. So I dealt with childhood obesity to start. For the first 10, 11 years of my life, I was very sedentary. I ate a lot of sugar and sweets. And as a result of that, I remember having a terrible doctor's visit heading into junior high school where my pediatrician, after doing all the usual stuff, asked me at point blank, do you want to have bigger boobs than the girls in school? Because I was that heavy. It was in front of my parents. It was a very shameful moment for me. And I was down on my luck at that time. You know, it was back in the days where still the two jockiest kids in gym class or at camp would pick teams. I was always picked last, made fun of for that, made fun of for my body going swimming. So I didn't start off at a good place, but when I started exercising and playing sports, because I said, you know what, the kids who are in shape are doing this, I was able to grow into my weight through exercise and whatnot. And as a teenager, I firmly believe you can drink liquid bleach and have a six-pack if you exercise a little bit. And going into college, I was very lean, very good shape. I was 6 feet, 215, but I was muscular heading into college. Unfortunately, during my sophomore year of college, I gained a sophomore 70. I gained 70 pounds the first 3 months of my sophomore year of college. So when I went home, I remember for Thanksgiving break, a lot of my friends and family from home who hadn't seen me since summer, I left in shape. I came back 70 pounds heavier. They're just like, what happened to you? And it was a very big struggle. And at the end of that year, I decided, you know what? I'm going to lose the weight. You know, I'm tired of being made fun of. My friends at school started ragging on me, especially when we go out and have a few too many to drink. So I lost 40 pounds in 4 months, the first 4 months. And it was through the conventional eat less, exercise more. So I busted it in the gym. I really restricted my calories and my portions. But after that 40-pound weight loss in 4 months, I stayed plateaued, not for a month, not for 2 months, but for 2 years. So through the end of college, entering the workforce, because I didn't start doing this right away full time. Well, I did get my first...
I want to stop you for a second because I think that's really important what you've said so far, and I want to ask you a couple of specifics about it. Sure. Because I think you've got two journeys that you went on. I'm not positive yet because I don't know all the details, but it sounds to me like the first journey of weight loss where you lost that 40 pounds in 3 months, and then, you know, you've got a second journey after you plateaued. The first journey, was that motivated by shame? Or
Yes.
what was it that got you, like, how And I'm not saying necessarily, obviously, we prefer not to do negative motivation, but we know that negative motivation does work too,
Yeah.
you know? And so I'm curious, like, what was the thought process that you went through to get yourself to the gym every day, to really say, like, I'm going to do this? Was it a declaration? Was it the decision? Was it the not wanting to face your family and friends again? What was the visual that you had? Because that's hard to go to the gym every day and to really restrict. Lots of people decide to do that,
Yeah.
but they don't do it. So what do you think it was that really drove you to go to the gym every day?
It was mostly just, and this is the same in childhood as well, it was to prove people wrong. So it was a negative motivation, and it was, you know what, I'm going to show you by the end of this, I'm going to come out looking bigger, better than ever, and
Yeah.
I'm going to prove you wrong. And
But you know what? I don't think that's necessarily a negative motivation, because if you hear what you're saying, you know, you're not saying I did it because I was ashamed of who I was. You say I did it because I knew I wasn't this. I did it because I wanted to prove to people that I knew who I really was. And that's a really distinct difference. So anyway,
Sure.
sorry to keep interrupting you, but I really want to stay on track with this for myself, because,
Sure.
you know, I'm getting a lot out of this for my own, like, health and fitness as well as business. Okay,
Absolutely.
so prove people wrong. Good. Now continue. So then you lost the 40 pounds, and actually you went on to be a personal trainer at that point too, right?
Yeah, I was doing it part-time. I started doing it in my last semester of college. I had like 10 credits left, so I had nothing to do, so I figured I'd make some extra money. And, you know, I was paying my own rent at school and for food and everything. But it was actually the most rewarding job I'd ever had, because I helped a lot of people lose weight and meet some other goals as well. I was a generic personal trainer at the time, so most people were still weight loss. That's still a huge portion of the industry, but there are other goals as well. So I thought by doing that, though, I'd get over the hump. And unfortunately, the dietary recommendations that were made were not conducive to me. I remember going to bed hungry a lot. I remember looking at my calories, like in the MyFitnessPal app, or at the time, I think it was just on a website. And I was like, oh, wow, I got like 500 calories left for the day. It's 2 p.m. I'm going to be up till 10 or 11 at night, you know, and I'm starving. What am I going to do? So that was part of it too. And I found that through a lot of research that your body, if you restrict portions and calories for too long, goes into a starvation mode. So after a while, everything you eat, your physiological processes change, and everything you eat, good, bad, or indifferent, is going to be stored as fat, because your body's in a survival mode at that point. So I struggled for 2 years, and I thought I have to restrict more and work out harder. And the result was, when I was in the workforce, working all day, working out on fumes, force-feeding myself whatever I could at night, and usually it wasn't anywhere near enough to satisfy me, then going to bed tired and hungry and wanting to just go downstairs and raid the fridge. So it was a very, very difficult time and a trying time. And I mentioned this on the Mind Aware show. I was very much in my own head, and I thought, maybe I'm going to stay stuck here. Maybe I was 235 pounds at the time. I'm 185 now. Maybe this 235-pound guy is who I am, with the muffin top, and and that's just it. Maybe this is just me.
And so what shifted? Because obviously, you know, that's a long time to be at a certain level. And actually, when you combine it with the fact that you also struggled with childhood obesity, and you had other times that, you know, I could see where it would be really easy to be there at that level and just say, like, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe it's in my genes, you know, all of those things. So what do you think made the shift for you? You know, something made you say, hold on, there must be more.
Yeah, and it was a combination of things. So I was on the verge of giving up. Like, literally, if I was teetering off the cliff, I was like right here, and I was about to fall off. And then my buddy actually turned me on to CrossFit. And while I'm not a huge fan of CrossFit anymore from a fitness perspective, a lot of the people who are CrossFitters prescribe to the paleo diet, and it has a completely different approach to eating than what I was certified to teach my clients, as well as just what the general public thinks. And it's, don't worry so much about portions or quantity, worry more so about the quality. And while I don't necessarily either subscribe to just the paleo diet anymore, I've done a good amount of my own research. That was the physical changing point. And when I started to see results there, I thought, you know what? This isn't who I am. I can do this, and I can overcome this, and I'm going to get to where I want to be, and I'm going to not only get there but keep it off. And I started finding things that worked for me, not just nutritionally, but fitness-wise as well. I used to force myself to go to the gym for 90 minutes, do chest and back day, and then go on the treadmill for half an hour to an hour afterwards. It was exhausting, and I didn't like it. So I started doing other things.
Yeah, time consuming too, right? Like it's like,
Right.
oh, I got to work out 2.5 hours a day to stay fit, or, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, let me back up just a minute because I want to make a quick comment here. Part of the reason why I like Pete and why I wanted Pete to talk to everybody is, first of all, he's achieved it, what a lot of us would like to do in one way or another. And second of all, he doesn't think there's only one approach to eating or one approach to fitness, that it's really about individual. And so if you don't subscribe to the paleo diet, you know, that's totally cool. Most of you know I'm vegan, so I'm not going to be out there eating a lot of meat and eggs or things like that either.
Right.
But what he's saying is that you'll find what works for you. And, you know, Pete, what I'm wondering, because it seems to me like it started right with your talking to your friend about CrossFit. And so do you feel like your mood or your attitude at the time that you talked to him kept you open to ideas? So, for example, you must have been in a place of either looking for solutions, or you must have been in a place of either feeling hopeful, or was it his sheer enthusiasm that made you go like, well, gosh, maybe this will work for me? Like, what at that point made you decide, okay, I'll try this one other thing?
Yeah, so I mentioned I was teetering on the ledge and I was about to just give up and just say, you know what, for most of my life I've been overweight and maybe this is just it for me. And you see it all the time with a lot of people. And I think it was a combination of the things you mentioned. I think it was a combination of his enthusiasm, because he started doing it and he was seeing great results, and he was doing the paleo diet on top of doing CrossFit workouts, and he was sending me pictures. And I remember him from college. He was in decent shape, but he was a little chubby. And now he was like ripped, and he'd only been doing it 6 months. So I said, all right, if it's working for him, it's a different approach, but obviously what I've been doing isn't working. So it was my last resort, and thankfully it worked.
So it kind of pulled you off the ledge and into, like, you know, hopeful, like maybe there's something else that could work with it. Being open to it too. You said a couple of times, and people will catch it on the replay when they listen, because I was noticing it as you were saying, and then this came on my radar, and then this came on my radar, maybe in a little different words, but the idea was like suddenly you were seeing options and you were seeing things that weren't there. And so I think that, you know, being in the right frame of mind really helped to kind of move you into that. So you started getting into doing a combination of things. It started out with CrossFit and paleo, but then you started to change. Like, I know right now you shifted from doing like leg day and back day to where now you prefer to do something different every day. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and also doing things in a way that I enjoy. So personally, the chest and back days of the world and 2-hour gym sessions, I don't like them. I find it to be a waste of time. I'd rather do something else. So the longer durations I spend exercising, I play softball a lot in some competitive leagues. That's what I do when I'm exercising long term. You know, when guys are lobbing the ball down the plate and I play left field and it's mostly right-handed hitters, I'm getting a lot of action. I'm getting a lot of running in. So that's my long-term strategy. Short-term, I'll either do yoga, which I enjoy, or I'll do some form of interval training. And that enables you to get just as much work done in 20 minutes as you get done in 2 hours. And it's tough at the time, but it frees up your day. And as an entrepreneur, that also helps me make sure that I get things in. So yeah, it's changing things up every day and listening to my body and just saying, okay, I'm really tight. I need yoga today. Or I got 20 minutes. Let's do an interval training workout. And, you know, identifying what that is day by day has really helped me stay true to it.
Well, and it's exactly like being aware, and, you know, being aware and making choices, making the feel good choice. And I know that was really revolutionary for me. I work out with a personal trainer as well, with a small group. And when I realized, like, oh my gosh, I can do my entire workout in under 20 minutes, that was such a revolution. And the other thing for me, in addition to the pieces you added about making it fun that really helped me out a lot, was being with other people. Now, not everybody's like that. Some people prefer to work out alone, but I know for myself, being with other people really helped to keep it fun and interesting and social and all that stuff. So you lost the next stretch of weight, and how long did it take you to do that?
It took me a few years still. So it wasn't perfect, but paleo finally got the scale under 235. I got down to about 220 just doing paleo. And I said, okay, I got down 15 pounds. There has to be somewhere else I can go. And at that point, like you mentioned earlier, I was receptive to other ideas. So I did some research on what would work, and I found the ketogenic diet, and that really just took it off. I also got a food allergy test done. I found that I was allergic to whey and casein protein, which are the two proteins found in dairy. So I was a huge dairy person. I had cheese on every meal. I drink a ton of milk every day. I had protein shakes after workouts, which were whey and casein protein, and I couldn't do that anymore. And once I identified food allergies because somebody else, it's funny how it works. When you're looking, sometimes you won't find it yourself, but then somebody random will come into your life or something random will pop up and say, have you tried this? So I got the food allergy test done. I cut out dairy, and that was it. I found
Pete,
it worked. Yeah.
It's funny you should say about this food allergy test, because I think that's really important for people to do. I think a lot of the world is being misdiagnosed with like ADD or other problems, or thinking they can't lose weight, or they've got chronic fatigue. And a lot of times I think it's just food. What do you think about that?
I 100% agree. In fact, right before we came on the show, I was telling you off air, I was talking to Dr. William Davis. He's the author of the Wheat Belly books, and he just came out with a new book called Undoctored. And he goes into vivid detail with a lot of research backing him up about how grains and sugars can really hinder your mental health. Just a lot of people with anxiety and depression, if they just clean those two things out of their diet within literally 3 weeks, if you were depressed, you're no longer depressed. You're looking at things more clearly and more rationally. Same with anxiety and a lot of different things. So I 100% agree. And a lot of people have linked ADD to abundant wheat and sugar consumption in kids especially. So I do think there is a correlation in food. And I think it's important to be aware of whether you're allergic to something like I was, which was inflaming me and quite possibly kept on 15 to 20 pounds, or you might be ingesting something regularly that you think is healthy that may not actually be. So it's important to be open and to do your research and due diligence if you're finding what you're doing currently is not working for you.
Well, and the thing that's interesting that I like that you said about it, and I agree, is that it's different for everybody, whatever you're allergic to. It reminds me of a story. I have a naturopathic doctor friend, and she had a mom bring a child into there. She worked in the back of their health food store, and the child was just spinning. It was so like ADD and hyper and digging in the bins, and they ended up doing some food allergy tests. Turned out that the little boy had an allergy to corn. And he got rid of the corn, and he came back and he's like this calm kid. And she tried to explain to me, she said, think about if you ingested poison. Yep. She said, think about how your body would react. Wouldn't your body just be moving around trying to get that poison out of your body? She's like, that's all that was happening to this little boy, and his thing happened to be corn. So I really think food allergies are overlooked. So I wanted to give 1 minute to that. The other thing, Pete, that I wanted to ask you about, so you got to 220 on paleo. And then what brought you the rest of the way there? And then how long? And it took a total of 2 years to kind of go from that 235 to 185. So the rest was just integral different things coming on your radar, or?
Right, exactly. So it wasn't minor intervals, so little plateaus. I was looking good at 220 because that was around where I was entering college and before I gained the 70 pounds my sophomore year. So I was looking pretty good, but I was looking at my midsection. I could still grab a lot of fat, and I was like, I want to tighten up. Like, I didn't got this motivation to look like the cover models in those men's health magazines. And I know for most people that's not healthy or realistic, but that's a goal that I wanted. So I came across the ketogenic diet, and for those of you unfamiliar with it, it's a very high dietary fat, moderate protein, low carb intake. And I started doing that, and it was amazing. On top of watching your quality, now I was kind of watching my portions, but more so my macronutrient intake. And by doing that, I lost another 15 pounds. I got down to 205 at that point. And then around 205, I was experiencing, and this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I used to work with people in person a lot, with personal training and what I was doing. And I remember in the middle of sessions, I wouldn't understand why, because at the time, remember, I was still ingesting a lot of dairy in the morning. Like I'd have an omelet with cheese and, different things in it. In the middle of a session, be like, I have to go to the bathroom. Like, keep going. And I would run, and it was very embarrassing. And then somebody told me, get a food allergy test. Like, obviously, you're ingesting something that is really causing you some significant stomach pain. It could also be causing you bloating. That might be the last key. So I said, okay. So I got it done. And it turned out that I had minor allergies to some things, but nothing significant. And then I got to the dairy section of it. And it was like major allergic reaction to whey protein, and then a decently high one just below whey for casein protein, the two proteins found in milk. So when I eliminated dairy, which was tough at first because I was like a cheese addict. I was drinking it and eating it all day. When I eliminated it, the rest of it went. It was simple. And then people kept telling me, how did you slim down so fast? What are you doing? And I said, well, I found out I was allergic to dairy and I eliminated it. I'm not doing anything else differently. So that was the last key.
Well, and you were open again to the last key, and you were open to listening, and you were open to changing it. So how long have you kept off the full 100 now, the full 100 pounds?
Going on 4 years.
Wow.
And
so do you ever have times where you feel like panicked or worried or afraid, like is it going to come back? Or do you feel like, do you catch yourself operating from fear mode? And how do you like give yourself a pep talk so that you don't get back into that?
I did once, and actually not too long ago, actually in the last summer, for the first time in my life, I got like shredded to the point that I had like a 12-pack, and I had like really low body fat, and I was getting cocky, and my business was really picking up in the fall. So in October, I was just like, I neglected my workouts. I started eating, garbage again, and I gained 15 pounds from early October to Thanksgiving. And obviously, a lot of the gains I'd made had gone away, and I had to talk myself out of it. I said, look, you're a permanent weight loss specialist. This is what you do. You're telling people and you're getting on them, because I do nutritional accountability with my clients. You get on them when they deviate, and yet you're not a good example. So I had to talk myself down from the ledge and be like, you know what? This is a lifestyle. This isn't just a fad. You've helped a lot of people. You've obviously helped yourself, and you need to get back on track. And since then, I've been on point, and I don't anticipate that's going to happen again. So, yeah.
So it's really, you give yourself a pep talk. And you know what, Pete? I don't even know if you realize this or not, but what's interesting is there's a theme in all of what you're saying. And the theme is, like, when you very first lost the weight, it was, I'm going to prove them wrong, because it was this idea of, I know who I am. I know who I am. This is who I am. I'm not this person that people see. Instead, I'm this other person. I'm going to let that other person out. And really, at the end here, with that last minor weight gain and loss again, this 15 pounds, you did the same thing. It's like, look I'm training people on this. I have to be my own best example. I have to, give myself a pep talk and walk the walk. So good. I love all this stuff. It's great. So I want to check in with our Facebook group, see if they have any questions, because so far I'm really enjoying this, Pete. For those of you who came in late, I'm talking to Pete Weintraub. You can find him over at Weight Loss by Pete. Now, he's got a free gift for you on the front page of Weight Loss by Pete, but I also importantly want to tell you that if for any reason you want to have a free strategy session with him, and free is the optimal word here, which is like my favorite price, as you know, you just go to Weight Loss by Pete/strategy. Weight Loss by Pete/strategy. So hang on, we're going to take a quick peek in here.
Sure, yeah, let's see.
Good stuff all around. And let us see what we've got. Ta-da-ta-ta. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Wow, look at the comments. Holy cow. Walk the talk. Way to go, Pete, Terry Noble says. I love it.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Caroline makes a really good point here, too. She says, toxins create discord in our body, too. Our body actually holds on to weight as a barrier to protect our vital organs. Great point, Caroline. I love that. And Terry, you're right, individual thing. And Ivy Lee says food can be your best medicine or your best poison or your worst poison. Hey, Steve Prusak's in the house, the juice guru. Woot woot. He wants to know if you've ever tried going plant-based. Have you researched Dr. Michael Greger's How Not to Die or the China Study? Yeah, China Study is a great book for those of you interested. And Steve Guru is a great resource for vegan plant-based food for sure too. Any comments on that, or for you?
I have not. I have not looked into that. I've heard of the China Study. I haven't read it. I'm not entirely plant-based. I do eat meat at this point, but like I said, I'm open to anything, and I'd definitely be willing to check them out.
He knows there are two vegans in the house now, so he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be stoned."
Oh no,
no, you know, it's nice. I mean, what I like about our community is that we all know we're all individuals, and it's all good. But I appreciate that you're open and do check it out. And frankly, you might be surprised. Thank you, Steve, for the kudos too. I love it. And everybody's just loving it. Look at all these people in here. Terry Hicks says this is so awesome. Oh. Ivy Lee's has a question for you, and let's do a couple of different questions here. Anybody have a question? Now's the time to ask, because I might not be able to check in again, so I'm going to try to keep a quick peek here and get to all the questions. But the first one is, do you have cravings, carb cravings, while you're in keto, or carb cravings at all? I guess when paleo you probably have some too. And how do you handle those cravings?
Yeah, I do get carb cravings. I actually have a recipe book that I was able to develop over several years. So finding strategies. So for me, for example, I love ice cream. Vanilla ice cream is my favorite. It's a little plain for people, but whatever. I used to eat that all the time, and as a kid and as an adult. And when I discovered I was allergic to it, I actually found a recipe that just used vanilla extract, some type of almond milk that didn't have all the filler in it, and some stevia, and I was able to buy like a $35, $40 ice cream machine, get it all mixed up, put it in the freezer. So I actually prepare my own carbs and pasta too. I spiralize zucchini and I'll saute it.
Oh, I know, it's so good, right?
Yeah, and you put in some tomato sauce, and there's spaghetti marinara right there. It's really simple, but you're not getting the negative effects of eating grains. So yeah, I do, but I come prepared so that I don't fall off course.
Another good one is spaghetti squash too. Like, it's super easy, and it really holds the taste of whatever. Like, when I first heard that, I thought, oh no, that's just going to be too weird putting some kind of a sauce on that. But it's not. It is. Yeah, it's really good.
Spaghetti squash is great to bake in the oven. Absolutely.
Yeah, and put sauce on. It works great. You know, I love it. Very, very good. And so the other thing too, let's talk about cravings or carbs. It sounds to me like what you're saying is that you find substitutes that work for you if you're having a craving for something. I know for myself too, sometimes I realize that the craving is for something specific. Like, I may realize, like, okay, what I'm really craving is not the cheese, let's say, but I'm craving the kind of hit that a protein would give me. So almonds or walnuts will give me that same hit, even though I don't know it. I think for me, part of it is also being aware and being in touch with your body. What are you really asking? And then the other kind of question, half statement I'm curious about is, do you find too that when you first give up something, that it's kind of rough the first few days and you have to be a little more centered and brain trained the first few days, but then after that you don't really even miss it?
Absolutely. And perfect example, just dating back to the interview I did before. So Dr. Davis is big on eliminating grains from your diet, and that's something I did too, and it's worked wonders for me, just all across the board with my health and my weight. And yeah, sometimes I will crave certain things, like sometimes I crave bread or pizza, whatever, but I've found healthy recipes that have helped substitute it, and I always come prepared. And I think that's the key, is knowing your body, knowing that you're going to eventually crave things. But in terms of the withdrawal process, grains have an opiate-like effect. The gliadin protein in grains has an opiate-like effect on you, so it is extremely addictive. So the first few days, it could even be a few weeks for some folks, depending on how reliant on it you are. You will experience almost like a drug addict going through withdrawal, and it's tough at first. But if you get past that, you're right. Your palate changes, and your cravings change, and you won't even crave that food anymore. And, God forbid you ever come across it again, you'll either be like, I don't believe I used to eat this. This is disgusting. This is too sweet or whatever. So that's something to consider as well. So it's tough at first, especially if it's an addictive substance or food like sugar or grains. But in the long run, you're right. Your palate will change, your cravings will change, and you may not even have cravings after that.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally true. It doesn't take that long either. I don't know what
Mm.
the magic number is. Maybe it has to do with going through the intestines and finally being eliminated from the body, but it seems like just a few days you
Yeah,
really
usually.
change your whole where you don't even like miss it or notice it, you
Hmm.
know? So
Yeah.
that's really good. I want to just take one more check in on here before
Hmm.
we start wrapping up because I want to come back to asking you again about keeping it off and the emotional piece that goes with it. We have Bridget asking, what difference do you see working with women, especially as they age?
What difference did she clarify
Is
what she
there,
means?
yeah, well, meaning, is there a difference in working with a 25-year-old man than with a 50-year-old woman or a postmenopausal woman? Do you see
Oh, gotcha.
any suggestions or differences for women as opposed to for men or especially younger men? Maybe it's the same for older men too. I don't
Mm.
know.
I find, first, generally speaking, if we're just going by age, I'd say the older they are, the more likely they are to follow through and complete the program. And the
That's
reason
a
being,
positive.
yeah,
That's nice to start on a positive. Thank you for
yeah.
that, Pete. That's good.
The reason being is that a lot of them, they have health scares late in life, or they have kids, they have something that they want to see through, and they're finding that their quality of life is not where they'd like it to be, or they're not on a path. Maybe they have a scary doctor's visit where the bloods come back and the doctor's like, all right, you got to make some changes or you're going to die of a heart attack in 6 months. And sometimes it is really that drastic and crazy. So I find that because older people in general tend to come across those situations where they have more to live for, they have families and kids, they'll be more open and receptive and consistent. When you're younger, you can get into this really fast waxing and waning of motivation where, yes, I'm all in for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later you're like, and I've had young people sign up with me, pay me for a month, and 2 weeks in they'll just be like, oh, this is too much work, I have to focus on my career or something. They'll fall off. In terms of women versus men, I've also found that women tend to be, for whatever the reason, they tend to be more driven than men. This isn't in all cases, but in most cases, I would say that. And in fact, if you look at my website, you'll see that a lot of my success stories are women. The ones with the videos or progress photos, those are women. And they were real people. They were moms who realized that, they have young kids. They can't even keep up with their kids, and they feel that they can't interact with their kids in the way that they would like. So because of that, they're much more receptive and they're willing to make that change, not just short term, but long after they reach their goals, so that they can continue to serve their kids. If they have a job, serve their job and their families a lot better. So that's what I've found just in my years of doing this.
Well, I can imagine too. You don't think about that, but there does come a point where you start to look at weight loss, and you don't want to stay in that place of fear with it. You want to stay in that place of hopefulness, like, okay, I can take control of my destiny and I can make that shift. So I appreciate that, and I love, Bridget, I'll bet you that's not the answer you were thinking you were going to get. I'm just curious if you thought that he was going to say that, because I have to love that how you can take everything and make it your reason for success. So for example, some people might want to say, well, I'm an older woman, so it's harder for me because I'm through menopause. Or you could say, I'm an older woman, so it's more likely I'm going to succeed because I've been there and done it all, and I've got more reason to. I've got a family, so everything can be your reason for success. So think about that. Whatever you've thought in the past, and I'm not saying you're doing this, Bridget, but this goes for I'm busting myself or busting everybody. Whatever you thought was your reason. Very, very good. Let me just take another quick peek in here because I do.
Sure. Good
Tiffany
questions.
says, yes to getting past the withdrawal phase. I've been refined sugar-free for a few years now, and I can't even handle the taste anymore, the gritty feeling on my teeth. Yes, good. There you go, Tiffany. And lots of people saying they're researching and things like that. Very interesting answers. Thank you, everybody. I love the participation on this. I love that we do. Stephen, too, he says, hey, no judgment. It's all a journey. Great for you, Pete. So he's the juice guru in here. We were talking about vegan. We know that, Steve. We love you, too, Steve. So I think the last thing I want to ask, or the last thing I want to touch on, is moving forward. How much of a mental game do you think making change in your life is, or keeping it off, or the journey that you're going on now, how much of it is a mental game for you?
I think it's 80–90% of it. I think it's a huge component. And, I mentioned my slip up last fall between October and around Thanksgiving time here in the States. It was a very difficult time for me mentally, because I just kind of put my foot on the brakes. And then I realized, I looked in the mirror one day, I'm like, oh, I don't look like I did before. And it's very mental. It's very mental. It's important to stay on top of yourself and instill discipline. I'm a firm believer in having a routine too, and putting yourself first. And that's something I've neglected to do. And I was kind of raised where you don't do that, where everyone has a martyr syndrome, where everyone and everything else comes first. And while, yes, if you have kids and you have a job and all these different things, yes, all of those things are vitally important. You have to put yourself first. So if your schedule is packed all day, you got to wake up earlier and you have to take care of yourself so that you can better serve the people and the things in your life. Otherwise, you're just going to fall off. So that's how I approach my life. And it's made a profound impact since my slip up last fall. I haven't had any, and I don't anticipate that there are going to be. But if there are, I know what to get back to. And it's just putting yourself first. And I think for me, that's what I have to do. And before I work with any of my clients, really quick, that's what I do first. We don't even do nutrition and fitness first. We get their mindsets right. So everyone usually has emotional triggers, especially when looking to lose weight. And it's all mindset oriented. There's either a person or a situation in your life, or a combination of the two, that's triggering you. So once we nip that in the bud and develop an action plan to get you past that, then there's no excuses. Then it's you versus yourself. And it's important to make sure. Yeah, and it's important to make sure that there are no excuses, so that, next time you slip up, okay, own it, get back on the horse, continue the next day. I actually had a client do that last night, and he owned up to it. I didn't give him any crap or anything. I was just like, all right, you owned up to it. I respect that. I won't say anything when I check your food tomorrow. Just keep going. And I think that's how we all should approach our health, our weight loss, and our well-being.
I love it. And all of life is you against yourself, by the way.
It is, yeah. Though that's intentionally why I do that. We just knock out the excuses or the ulterior reasons right there. Yep.
That's fantastic. I love that, Pete. Yeah, it's all really good stuff, and I really like everything that you're saying. You're really reasonable and forgiving, and I want to remind everybody that you just said, look, I don't intend to slip up again, but if I do, I know what I need to do to get back on track. And that's where your real power starts to come from, when you start to really feel sure that you can count on yourself to be hopeful and pull yourself off that ledge when you need to. Really be it's that internal motivation, being really driven to just be your best self. And again, Pete goes back to it again and again and again in his story. He knew who he was. He knew who he was in the world, and he knew whether it was to prove people wrong or whether it was to strive and be better. He knew that that's where he was going. So it's really good stuff. I want to make sure and give that URL again. It's Weight Loss by Pete. We're talking to Peter Weintraub. If you go to Weight Loss by Pete/strategy, you can also get a free call with Pete, which is great. Do you have any parting advice before we say goodbye, Pete?
Yeah, just to reiterate what we've talked about today, it is a difficult, if you're looking to lose weight or improve your health, it is difficult at start, but it's okay. And part of what I talked about with Dr. Davis just before I hopped on here is the mental aspect is very, very important. It's understanding, it's being patient with yourself, and understanding that, you may not be where you want to be now, but you can get there. And you just need to stay disciplined. You need to stay consistent. And you got to do what works well for you. And Dana mentioned it earlier, and I 100% agree. What I do isn't always necessarily 100% verbatim what I recommend a client does, because he or she might like different types of food, or they might not eat certain types of food. If they are vegan or vegetarian, I can still work with them. We just figure something else out from a protein source and things like that. So it's finding what works for you. And when you do that, you'll find that consistency is a lot easier when you're doing what feels right versus forcing yourself to go to a Globo gym and go through a long workout, unless that works for you. So
yeah, right. Unless that's your thing, right?
Yeah,
that's
if you like that, then keep doing it. But for most people, that's not the case. So find what works for you, and that'll make staying consistent, staying on task a lot easier.
Sounds good. Thank you, Pete. That was just great. Thanks so much for being here. This was fun, and you get it. Isn't it nice to have a nice, relaxed approach to this, and to realize that you can just be gentle with yourself and take it easy, and let's all do this. Let's start to see that you are who you are inside. You know who you are. You know that person who's inside, and you know that ultimately, starting now, even today, you're already moving toward that. Whether you see it immediately in this second or whether you don't, believe me when I tell you, you're getting there. You're already on your way. You're already thinking about it. The fact that you're here for this interview means that this is up for you, and you're making choices, and stuff is coming on your radar. So trust that you have the brain and the mindset to get you where you want to go, because you're a brain trainer and you're here. And now it's just a matter of tweaking it, finding exactly the right thing. So with that, go out, have some fun with this, be gentle on yourself today, and we'll see you very soon right here in Train Your Brain U. Bye, everybody.
All right, take care, guys.